all right. What's going on here then? What's all this noise I'm hearing? Oh, wait, hang on. These are the first mutterings of silly season! Because I was really wanting to ignore this rumour, but you folks really wanted me to talk about it, and I'm already here, so... According to The Race, Mercedes driver George Russell and Red Bull team principal Christian Horner have already held some informal chats in recent weeks to stay appraised of each other's plans. Because Christian Horner's got an eye on Red Bull's future in case Max Verstappen does walk out, and then George Russell is without contract next year, so technically he is a free agent, and in the world of Formula One, if you are a free agent for the following year, and whilst these are not formal negotiations, and they are just that, just rumours and speculation at the beginnings of silly season, it is a very important thing to consider that nobody saw coming. And yes, it goes completely against what I think is going to happen, that George will just stay exactly where he is, and Max will probably stay where he is next year too, or take a sabbatical. Heck, even the Verstappen-Alpine rumours in my mind make more sense than what's going on here with a driver swap. But, okay, I am going to talk about it since you do want it, so you better like this video, okay? But to be fair, reports of Russell's talks with the rival teams this year have emerged over the first few races, not just with Red Bull. He's been spotted having a warm moment with McLaren bosses Stella and Brown in Australia, and then embracing, supposedly via Planet F1, Alpine's Flavio Briatore. Classic optics for this kind of topic. Now, the revelation of dialogue with Horner, it has raised eyebrows the highest. It's enough to get many tongues wagging, and yes, reluctantly, me getting out the spanner of speculation and doing a little bit of yapping for your entertainment. And in a way, it kind of harks back to what Toto was doing with the likes of Valtteri Bottas, who did make way for, ironically, George Russell. Toto rewarding Valtteri for his loyalty and saying, don't you worry, Valtteri, I'll make sure my buddy Fred gets you a seat at Alfa Romeo. I'm pretty sure that is going to go absolutely fine for you. But yeah, okay, upon thinking about it, a Russell-Verstappen swap would be a seismic earthquake in the world of Formula One. Trading youth for dominance, because technically George Russell is 5 months younger than Verstappen, so got a little bit more left in the tank in comparison to Max. And yes, it is incredibly silly, probably one of the silliest seasons that... And yes, it's incredibly silly and daft and ridiculous, but if this is going to be how we kick off this year's version, then hey, it's a good start. But I must make this perfectly clear. There have been no formal confirmations from either party that this is the start of a formal negotiation. This is all paddock gossip. Let's just make that absolutely clear here. But it is one rooted in some credible sourcing. Horner himself hinting late last season that a driver of Russell's caliber would naturally be on Red Bull's radar if he became available, saying, "It would be foolish not to take that into consideration. Give it a go." Yeah, okay, I made that last part up. I mean, may I remind you about what was going on last year when Carlos Sainz was flavour of the month? After his win in Australia, Christian Horner said that it would be foolish not to consider him since he's going to be unemployed next year. And then all the stuff that happened with Checo. Horner seizing the opportunity to get Sergio away from the abyss that was looming the following race in Abu Dhabi when his Racing Point contract ended. So it's no surprise these Russell to Red Bull rumours are emerging now, since Russell is the flavour of the month at the moment, aside from the McLaren boys. 5 rounds into a turbulent season. And the team has had an uncharacteristically shaky start to the year. Nothing like their smooth and steady flyaway period last year, which, as we found out at the end of 2024, turned out to be pretty handy in Max's title defence that year. This year? Oh no, they've not got that at all. And as we all know, performance clauses have been talk of the town at this point. But then we've now got wind that maybe these clauses are slightly tighter than we might have first suspected. That rumours are saying that Max could walk if he's not at least the runner-up by the summer break, and if Red Bull definitely drops out of the top 3 by mid-season. So mid-season, not by the end of the season. Means that Red Bull would be wise to maybe just cast out their nets to see if anybody's biting right now, which, let's be real, if there are any drivers out there that are looking to really confirm for themselves that they are definitely the team leader without question, since that is the model that Red Bull really subscribes to, like how you should subscribe to my channel, by the way, thank you very much. So I think the right kind of driver might want to consider their options in the future if things aren't going their way. Lando. You might also remember the other day where I floated the idea of maybe Pierre Gasly being pinged for a sensational return to the Red Bull fold, in case the antics over in Enston proved to be too much to bear for the Frenchman. and maybe a shot of redemption with a works team on the cards. I mean, think about it. Red Bull powertrains next year, it means the team, Christian Horner's, is now completely self-sufficient. They make everything in-house effectively, and that would be the absolute dream for the likes of Gasly, who's really had to walk back the idea of wanting to drive for a works team, since next year Alpine will become a customer team. The team that he joined in 2023, nothing like it is now or even next year. And a chance to prove Dr. Marco wrong and show all of the people that really didn't get on with him in 2019 that he's a different person now. But anyway, here's what Fox Sports Australia's outlet pretty much sums up this entire situation. Red Bull has sounded out Russell on his 2026 availability as a precaution should Max Verstappen abandon the team at the end of the season, with Horner and Russell instead making each other aware of their respective contract situations ahead of what could be a significant driver market shakeup. Okay, now this would be quite dramatic, I'm not gonna lie. And we all know Red Bull likes to pull off dramatics when it comes to their second seat, so... I mean, 3 swaps of drivers in the span of a few months is, as described by ex-driver Geer de van der Garde, as closer to bullying or a panic move, rather than a measured decision. It really underscores the turbulence at Red Bull. The team is clearly in an aggressive mode to course correct this year's campaign, ensuring they have a top driver secured for next year. That's the bigger picture. If Max Verstappen is part of that equation, then fantastic. If not, then they really need to knuckle down and make sure they have got someone locked in who can step in and replace Max as a confirmed leader. Okay, Law, well, where are Mercedes in all of this? What do they think? Well, as you've seen throughout multiple interviews, Toto and the team, they're playing it as cool as Narain Karthikeyan's. Committed to keeping George alongside rising star Antonelli, as I personally believe they should, because come on, these two are Mercedes Junior alumni. They're the perfect billboard for the program. And based on what Toto's been saying, that it's only a formality, these contract negotiations. I recall them saying that, yes, don't worry about George and Kimi, we can get contracts done within 24 hours or so because everything's so relaxed, we all like each other, we're all knowing the program. Once they have done the flyaways, because they are rather intense, then they will sit down and talk contracts. That rumour of George getting a 2+1 deal through 2028, I'd certainly think is perfectly reasonable. It's somewhat long-term, but it does leave options open for both parties, and I think that Kimi would get a deal done within a few days or something like that, because come on, the kid's already scored more points than Lewis Hamilton so far this season. It's already proven that the promotion for Kimi thus far has actually been a sound choice. Especially considering that last year's optics for Kimi weren't that great because Prema really dropped the ball when it came to the brand new F2 cars. Thankfully, they're doing a little bit better this year, but you got to admit, poor Ollie, poor Kimi, they got run roughshod due to the fact that Prema was seriously dealing with setup issues. It made them look awful or just mediocre at best. Well, that's all being redeemed now. It also stands to reason that Mercedes sees Russell as central to its post-Hamilton era. A true bastion of the Mercedes way, where both drivers are data-driven, professional, somewhat stiff in comparison to other teams and drivers, but otherwise respectable, whilst at the same time having a little bit of eccentricity to really stave off the idea that they are basically just planks of wood. I mean, with the likes of Kimi, come on, he's a little gremlin of a meme lord, and it's fantastic, and I can't believe I saw one video where Mercedes were talking about their favourite Mario Kart character, and Kimi said it was Mario, and he actually went, "Mamma mia." It's so glorious to see. And it would be surreal if he actually managed to win a world title before he turns 20, which right now, based on his actual trajectory, could be even faster than Piastri's. But in the background looms the possibility of signing Max, a 4-time champion, a generational talent. And whilst Wolff has denied any talks with Verstappen's camp have taken place recently, that he's put them on the shelf, as Martin Brundle has put it, Toto missed Max once, I don't think that he'll miss him a second time. But, to play devil's advocate here, this is the same person, Sky F1 pundit, who suggested that Jack Doohan brake test Fernando Alonso during the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix weekend, to brake test the other driver that Flavio manages, his main man, Fernando. Oh, I think that would have gone down so well with Flavio, wouldn't it? And even though it pains me to say this looming possibility could make Russell's seat less secure, given Antonelli is considered untouchable as Mercedes' future for possibly just as long as Hamilton's tenure was, maybe more. Russell, though, he appears unfazed, even pragmatic at times if Max replaced him, emphasising that performance is his best argument for staying. And I actually recall in one recent interview that Russell said if Mercedes wanted to come up with an excuse to get rid of him, they would have done so already. And so far, there is no reason to get rid of Russell because he's giving it the beans. That spirited drive in Bahrain when the car was failing all around him, he still managed to keep Lando behind him. That's a spirited drive. There have been so many mutterings about Russell's integrity, including reports from really skeptical parts of the internet that maybe there was some kind of campaign from Verstappen's side to destabilise George to make a steady pathway into Mercedes. And again, this is real spanner talk, but clearly, as we saw in Qatar, George didn't capitulate. In fact, he rose to the occasion. He said he wouldn't be bullied by people like Max, that he's prepared to relish the challenge of taking down Verstappen. And like, oh no, if that was the case to try and destabilise George, no, you reinforced him. But over at Red Bull, beyond Horner's public reassurances, the CEO Oliver Mintzlaff, who now oversees the company's sporting projects, has been even more emphatic. Him convinced that Verstappen isn't going anywhere. Max once told me, he said, that he started his career at Red Bull and would like to end it there, lauding Verstappen as the best driver in the world, but pointedly noted that the truth was that he owes a lot to Red Bull. That is pretty interesting. Okay, so what kind of debt does Max owe the team now? That contract through 2028, is that it? Really? I mean, okay, fine. Yeah, Red Bull did take a punt on Max through Dr. Marco's assertions in 2014 to get that practice gig with Toro Rosso, fair enough, but it clearly was worth it very early on in 2015 with that first season at Toro Rosso, and then 2016 getting promoted. It's just a really unusual thing to say from Mintzlaff, very defensive right there. It's certainly intriguing, and maybe alluding to the idea there is a little bit of uncertainty going on around Salzburg. And a hint that maybe if Max jumped at the first sign of adversity, that Oliver Mintzlaff would consider that as something that he would frown upon, maybe even consider it a betrayal. But yeah, I do think it is the case of Red Bull hoping for the best but planning for the worst. Marco's admission that they could lose Max if performance dips was a rare crack in the armour too. Verstappen, though, he brushed it off, as we saw recently, saying that a lot of people were talking about him, except himself. He's not thinking about it, and doesn't care who is. But if results don't pick up by the summer break, Red Bull knows that other suitors may come a-knocking, since they might presume Max might be wanting to jump ship. So, in a way, now that I really sit down and think about it reluctantly, people like George Russell might just say, blimey, there might be an opportunity for an exit strategy. Time for me to get my hands dirty and get some results. This is why the informal talks with George and Christian, they're so significant. They indicate that the team is proactively weighing who could lead the team should they need a new number one driver next year. Russell, when you really step back and look at him as a complete package, is an attractive option. He is very marketable, as in he's very friendly with sponsors, really bringing off some Jensen Button vibes, as in, hey, sponsors are part of the gig in Formula 1, just please them, do your job, it's fine, you know, it could be a little bit entertaining. And not to mention, we have seen now quite a few times that George is not afraid to go toe-to-toe with Verstappen, and it all really started from Baku 2023, and all of those little comments after the race had happened. And then, of course, we're seeing Oscar Piastri demonstrate that as well. Now, Red Bull's plan A, keep Max. But in a world where Max left, Russell might be the ideal linchpin for Red Bull and its sponsors, a ready-made team leader around whom they can rebuild in the wake of other transitory efforts. Yeah, because we've had several senior figure walkouts in the last couple of years. And then there are some people speculating that, well, okay, if George is being tied to Red Bull, then who's to say that maybe George and Max could be, well, working together, replacing Yuki Tsunoda if he doesn't come up with the goods, or that Honda association is just simply not enough to warrant a multi-year deal. That could easily happen. I hope it doesn't happen. I want Yuki to prove himself that he could be a useful asset in helping develop the RB21 into the 22 and some kind of continuity in their brand new wind tunnel. To get rid of both drivers from this year would not be great in trying to do compare and contrasting work. But then at the same time, you got to remember that many times Christian Horner has said that he will not put two alpha drivers together. That's why all of the rumours over several years of Alonso and Verstappen working together would just simply never happen, even though they both really value one another and have vowed to be partners in World Endurance and Le Mans in the future. Then there's the intriguing wildcard of indeed Lando Norris. The talented McLaren driver, he's frequently been linked to Red Bull in rumours over the years, and granted, Norris is contracted to McLaren long term, But if Verstappen were to leave, Red Bull might reignite their interest in him for 2026, especially since Norris has made public comments that this year's Red Bull isn't all that bad. And also that Oscar Piastri is on a mission to state his case for the championship and to hold McLaren to account in regards to the team's constant assertions of driver parity. Lando might want to seek refuge at a team that would definitely circle around him without question: Red Bull. That, however, could depend about whether or not George Russell is actually in play here. Red Bull might have to decide which British driver is best, Norris or Russell. And I know you might be talking about British bias, but it is a really good thought experiment. Which is better, Lando or George? There's only one way to find out. Fight! Horner and Mintzer, they can publicly downplay the noise all they want, but behind closed doors and through Marco being able to keep his mouth shut, they will not want to be caught flat-footed if Max makes a shock exit at the end of the year. They don't want to be rushed into any decision, because look at what happened with Liam. They rushed into a decision and that backfired tremendously. Only now is Liam starting to get comfortable in the car. Dr. Marco, by the way, saying that, yes, it was good. Liam was a higher grade driver, better than Isaac around Jeddah, fantastic. So, okay, Liam is doing the business, for now. But you also got to give credit to George, because throughout all of this, he is not intimidated. He's not getting shouty. He's not ignoring the rumours. He's actually welcoming them. He's actually saying, well, in my honest opinion, Max is the best around at the moment, and it would be totally understandable if Mercedes were approaching him in some shape or form. I mean, he's even floated the idea about being teammates with him at Mercedes. I mean, he's completely chill by this. Either he is just genuinely completely unfazed, or he definitely knows he can talk all he wants because he knows Toto is about to just ask him to sign the dotted line any moment. So therefore you can mess around with the press a little bit, including people like me. And if I did, then I fell hook, line and sinker, and I don't care. And you've only got to look at what happened at Qatar. Sure, many people would criticise George for being incredibly petty for seeking a one-place grid drop during that event, but he wasn't afraid to call out Verstappen for behaviour that he personally thought was unacceptable, bullying even. And his response isn't just about the optics either. It's to try and win favour amongst a fandom who many view as whingy or a tryhard or Woody from Toy Story. Utter cringe. But what he is also doing, since he doesn't have a contract at the moment, is providing some kind of soundboard that he is prepared to put up with any lineup or conditions that any team may have for him, that he is completely and utterly flexible and is not afraid of a challenge. No one and nothing could trouble him. So that's why we see all of these pictures of him talking to McLaren reps, Alpine reps, and now, of course, Red Bull. He is really playing the field. And besides, top drivers often engage in exploratory talks when contracts near their end. Russell's just keeping his options open. It's just smart business sense in case Toto does bite the bullet, like Brundle reckons, and has a second bite of the apple. Another key asset: performance. You've only got to look at what George Russell is doing right now, where he is in the championship, dragging that W16, helping Mercedes out to be in second place in the constructors, and solidly so, comfortably ahead of the likes of Red Bull, Ferrari. They're just consistent, solid. The W16, where it is right now, if it continues this way, and they are a strong second place, not just hanging in there like they were in 2023 by the skin of their teeth against Ferrari, this would be a huge and cathartic sense of closure for the team. That, yes, James Allison, George, the rest of the people at Brackley, they were able to rise above the pitfalls and issues of 2022 and end this troubled regulation cycle on a high, with the real effects of the cost cap really biting this team. Now it's going to be increased to about, I think, 220 million next year. They've got a bit more wiggle room, so expect Mercedes to thrive. And with this power unit talk is actually true, and they're going to be the best, George Russell, Oscar Piastri, oh, that'd be a good fight, wouldn't it? And this development progression with this W16, it proves that, George has got a good eye, he's got good hands, and he's got a good bum. Well, okay, we've talked about George, so if this driver swap does happen, where are we at? That Mercedes has a team driver lineup in 2026 which has a generational talent, and they're one that they made at home, the Italian Stappen, who's already shown that he's bold enough to pull cheeky moves on Max, like that Turn 4 overtake. It's a combo of proven leadership and long-term promise, like Leclerc under Vettel, or Russell under Hamilton. Kimi would likely play the student role for the time being. It's a calmer pairing with less risk of infighting for now, but it does have a lot of long-term upside. That is if Kimi is prepared to play along and stick to the script, and not let youth get the better of him in terms of being cocky. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure that that won't happen, because Toto has been teaching this kid how to be a Mercedes driver since he was effectively out of pull-ups. That essentially, he is going to make sure, Kimi, that he doesn't give his master another panic attack, because he had to deal with dozens of them in 2016. He will not allow that to happen again. It was a minor miracle and a sign, because Mercedes were in troubled times and waters, that they weren't fighting for the championship. Had they been so, George and Lewis, it would have exploded. If they do so, and they defer to Max without question for many, many years, it could lead to Kimi's development being stunted. It might lead him to have wandering eyes with other platforms that will recognise his prodigious talent. Even Ferrari might be an option for him in the next couple of years, if this proves to be the case. And come on, Kimi Antonelli, a fast Italian, the first real fast Italian in a very, very, very long time in the case of Formula One. I'm glad that Italian Jesus has proved himself in world endurance. Can you imagine how the Tifosi would react if Ferrari managed to nail it, grab Antonelli, an Italian driver, a fast one, driving for the Scuderia? They would self-combust. There's also, as we touched upon, a third possibility. Verstappen leaves Red Bull, folks reckon Aston Martin, but Alpine could be an option in my honest opinion, and Russell stays at Mercedes. In that case, Red Bull could choose a top-tier alternative like Lando, Charles, or maybe call back Pierre Gasly, having reportedly tried their luck summoning Albon and failing miserably, whilst Mercedes lock in Russell with that deal through 2028. But okay, since this might be the start of silly season, what could the domino effect actually be if the driver swap realises itself? Well, think back to 2022 when Sebastian Vettel made his surprise announcement that he was going to retire, although, let's be real, with Ben Sulayem knocking around, it wasn't really a surprise. Do you really think that Sebastian would have put up with all of that stuff? And then Fernando Alonso sweeps in, and then Oscar Piastri breaks from Alpine to go to McLaren. It was a real bombastic time, and I am so sad I wasn't here to commentate on that. I missed out by just a few months. If Verstappen moves, it could create a cascade, ignite a full reshuffle across the grid. As we said, Mercedes could lose Russell and gain Verstappen, or both. Red Bull might need a new team leader if Max departs, plumping for maybe Russell, Norris, or as I mentioned, Gasly. And then, of course, it opens the door for Franco Colapinto, whether or not Alpine decide to stick with Jack Doohan for another year or not. As always, Aston Martin is in the mix. The latest rumours saying that it could be a bumper €250 million move for Verstappen for a 3-year contract, and even though Andy Cowell has denied this, these rumours are going to swell no matter what, because now reportedly Papa Stroll is getting angry at Adrian Newey for not working on this year's car, and it's absolutely down in the doldrums. A tractor. I basically pay you $33 million a year! I mean, McLaren could easily be at play if Oscar Piastri does go on to win the world title and Lando gets completely blindsided by it, and then looks for another team that might actually revolve around him again. I don't really know. I don't think Zach Brown would want that to happen because, well, they've already been locked in. It depends on how willing Red Bull are willing to, get deep in their pockets. Even Ferrari could be in the equation if things get really silly. And hey, come on, speculation here. It's silly season. It's like Christmas. You can just go, oh, come on, it's silly season! But realistically, in this case, something radical would have to change. Like, if Charles Leclerc were to suddenly just get up, walk, having really had enough with the Scuderia and all of their antics, or if Lewis Hamilton's season and next season completely unravel. Although I really don't see that happening with Lewis, it's quite clear that they are managing their expectations for this year and hoping that next year's regulations really are quite favourable for Lewis, that they actually work with him, because it can happen. Drivers may not like certain regulations, they just don't click, and then they have to wait for the next cycle to really get back on song again. And of course, the Scuderia's ideal narrative is to have one guy really understanding the car right now, whilst the other one is a long-term project which they might be able to see rise again in a really glorious manner. So that's the optics I think Ferrari are going for right now. But yes, one move from Verstappen and F1's dominoes fall. Russell, Lando, Gasly, all suddenly in play. Right now, it's all speculation, but speculation sometimes in Formula One can easily convert itself into reality. And both Russell and Verstappen have been around the block a few times to know that they need to be savvy and that timing is absolutely everything. They need to play the field to at least have a chance of continuing their career into their 30s. But yes, I think we can officially say that silly season for 2025, buckle up, we've arrived. And what's also arrived, in my opinion, is that the reality of Charles Leclerc being a guiding light for the Tifosi. That whilst Lewis Hamilton is waiting for Ferrari to come up with a plan for him, Il Predestinato is proving that this year's car has legs. To find out why I believe Charles' efforts so far this year should really be recognised in the midst of all the doom and gloom, Watch this video next, straight after this one.